Taoiseach, without question, from a strategic perspective, one of the most disappointing aspects of yesterday's budget was the lack of any substantial response to the challenges of Brexit. What we were presented with, and there's a sheet issued, Brexit Ready, amounted to mere tokenism and was quite pathetic in itself, because all of the measures would have happened anyway, and some were in place in advance of any Brexit referendum. And it really is extraordinary, because people were promised in advance that this would be a Brexit-proofed budget. But the reality is that it is empty on Brexit. And I would put it to you, Taoiseach, that the government should be planning for a hard Brexit. That should be the priority, not praying and wishing for a soft Brexit and hoping that everything will be all right on the night. And if you look, for example, at the base assumption in the budget document, the base scenario is that you're assuming an exchange rate, for example, next year of 85 pence to a euro. Now, yesterday the exchange rate was 91 pence to the euro. And now you're betting, Taoiseach, or you're assuming that the sterling will strengthen by over 6% next year. It seems to me an extraordinary bet or gamble to have. And in addition to that, the Department of Foreign Affairs, for example, no increase in its envelope. And what Brexit is opening up for us is huge challenges and, yes, some opportunities. But trade diversification has to be one. The search for new markets, the expansion of the international footprint for Ireland to make sure we can secure new markets. We're hugely dependent on the British market, particularly Irish-owned companies and food and agriculture companies. Farming is going through a terrible crisis at the moment, from grain to beef to dairy and across the board. And there's nothing substantial happening in relation to that to prepare for even the further challenges that await as a result of the British decision to leave the European Union. And likewise, Board BIA, Enterprise Ireland, the IDA and so on are not, in my opinion, being adequately resourced to pursue ambitious targets in relation to reorientating the Irish economic effort internationally as a result of the EU, which we will have to do. We will have to find new markets. And we will have to develop new markets. We will also have to attract inward investment, and I know the idea of working for financial services from Britain, but we also have the challenge of Irish companies may want to relocate to the UK, for example, in terms of securing the markets there. So these are very real issues which have not been addressed. And the most fundamental one is the immediate one, which is real, which is the currency crisis. And IBEC and others have said, Taoiseach, that there should be a contingency provision for businesses here in relation to the devaluation of sterling and its impact on Irish companies and their export performance. Will such a contingency provision be put in place?
Thank you very much. Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, this is probably the greatest economic challenge facing not just Ireland, but I think the European Union in the last 50 years. And the decision made by the electorate in the UK has brought about a situation of confusion, of lack of certainty, of great concern, of anxiety, of currency fluctuation, which is impacting on business here and elsewhere. Now, our priorities, Deputy Martin, are to look after the interests of our citizens, look after the interests of Ireland's economy, look after the relationship that we have with both Northern Ireland and the UK, including the peace process, and our place in Europe for the future. So clearly the decision has been followed by quite a number of comments, both from those who are dealing on behalf of the British government with the question of Brexit and from the situation that has changed from day to day. I note that this morning the Prime Minister has indicated that there will be an opportunity to discuss the matter in the Commons, and obviously statements made abroad have been changed, put it that way. So for us here, the immediate concern is the consequence of the devaluation of sterling against the euro, and the difficulties that that's causing for Irish businesses in terms of exports. because of rising costs. So this budget has included a number of issues that refer to Brexit. Obviously, there are new resources for the enterprise agencies. 50 new people are going to Enterprise Ireland. I was in the RDS just last week with 140 of the people from abroad who've come back to talk about their potential sales for new markets and the diversification into places like the States or Canada or other areas in the European Union. Minister Creed's rolling out 150 million low-interest loan for farmers with cash flow or new business supports to help them, because quite a significant extent of our exports into Britain are from the agri sector. And there is an agri-food package of tax measures, and we have maintained the strong support evident here in Ireland since the VAT rate was reduced in the hospitality sector from 13.5 down to 9. We've also included the extension of the reduction in capital gains for entrepreneurs. Most of those are small businesses here with very little profit margins, and mostly they're outside the Dublin region, and that's being extended, as has the foreign earnings deduction for businesses where people from those businesses have to travel abroad in the context of their work and looking for new markets. And also the extension of the special assignee situation that applies for companies bringing in experts with particular skills.
Thank you very much, Taoiseach.
There's a whole lot more, Ceann. Obviously, the issue that Deputy Martin has raised is one that I will continue to brief opposition leaders on, as the case may be. Today I meet Michel Barnier, who is coming here on behalf of the European Commission. I'd point out to the House that irrespective of the work that the Commission will do here, it will be the European Council, that is the elected leaders and heads of government, who will oversee the political decisions arising from the Brexit situation.
Deputy Martin.
Taoiseach, you didn't answer the core question in terms of currency, because the budget failed in relation to properly addressing the Brexit issue. Any commentary on the budget in relation to Brexit is negative from opinion outside of this House and across the board. And the key question I put to you, the budget is assuming a base scenario for next year of 85 pence sterling to the euro. Are you satisfied that that's a solid basis on which to plan the economy for the next 12 months? Because I think that is a very foolish gamble indeed. And I would not accept it. All the measures you've outlined, Taoiseach, would have happened independent of Brexit. In fact, most of them were in place prior to the Brexit referendum. In fact, all of them would have been in place in one part or another in terms of the base schemes there. So nothing substantial happened yesterday, which was a huge surprise to many people who expected such a package. Fundamentally, Taoiseach, is the government going to provide a currency crisis package for Irish industry? That's the key question, because that's happening right now.
Thank you, Deputy Martin.
That's not something that we have to plan for. It's actually occurring right now. We know it from the mushroom industry, from horticulture generally. The impact is very real. It has resulted in loss of jobs. A currency crisis package should have been provided for in yesterday's budget. And what is the government's position on that? And will you answer the question about the 85p to sterling? Is that the base scenario that you're sticking with for the next 12 months, as outlined in the budget documents?
A minute to
the Department of Finance's paper did indicate that, and clearly that wasn't the rate that sterling was operating at yesterday. The Department of Finance, the Department of Jobs and Enterprise and the Strategic Banking Corporation have been with their personnel in Brussels to make an arrangement for credit at long-term low interest for businesses that are going to suffer here. $1 million has been ring-fenced for that in yesterday's budget. When you say what is the Brexit issue? What is the Brexit issue? Is it a hard border? Is it a soft border? Is it the situation that the United Kingdom want access to the single market? I understand that today there are comments that they may wish to contribute to join that market. This situation is quite fluid until Prime Minister moves Article 50. And long before the Brexit vote, we've had a situation here where we have been planning for contingencies that may or may not arise. I explained this to you and to the other leaders already, and will do so again. So we are conscious of the fact that currency fluctuations will have a serious impact, or may have a serious impact, upon businesses here. We've had evidence of it already, and that's why Enterprise Ireland, that's why Minister for Agriculture has put out 150 million low-interest credit facilities for those in the agri-sector who have exports into Britain, of which there are many, with a multi-billion operation. But we have to look at the prospect and the possibility of putting together longer-term, low-interest facilities, and we have our people working on that. The sterling rate may vary depending on the situation that arises. Every time a comment has been made about Brexit, sterling has fluctuated, and it has impacted upon us here.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Let me repeat that our concerns, Deputy Martin, are for our citizens, for our economy, for the protection of the links we have with peace process in Northern Ireland, UK, and our future in Europe. We'll discuss that when Mr Barnier comes in the afternoon also.